I'll speak about a modified approach to evisceration. This is the technique that several of us do. We refined it over the years when we were training together. Savri was with us, and this is the modified technique in terms of the published literature that we have. I'll quickly go into it. So when we talk about evisceration, basically we're talking about the destructive surgery where we remove the cornea and the intraocular structures while we preserve the sclera and the extraocular muscle attachments. This is a very old surgery which was described first in 1817. But what changed the game was when Mules came out with an implant, the glass implant. Well, things have moved on since then. So where would you do an evisceration? So basic purpose is to remove a diseased eye and provide comfort to the patient. But at the same time, it's also important that you restore the appearance of the patient. So you need to replace volume and give a good cosmetic and functional appearance once the process of fitting is done. So you need to prepare the groundwork for a good cosmetic outcome. So what are the indications for evisceration? Basically, we do it in patients who have a disfigured or a painful blind eye. Also in certain eye infections like panophthalmitis, after you've controlled the orbital component of the infection, end-stage endophthalmitis and other unsalvageable infections of the eye, mainly of the cornea. And also in penetrating trauma. So earlier we were avoiding evisceration in these cases because of the fear of sympathetic ophthalmitis, but then the incidence is actually very low. And when we talk about the technique, we'll also say how can you reduce the risk of sympathetic ophthalmitis. What are the contraindications? So one of the most important things to remember is that never do it in the situation where you have an intraocular tumor. And you need to look for an intraocular tumor before you go ahead and do the surgery. What about phthisis bulbi? Well, phthisis is a situation where the eye has already shrunken, but the technique that we're going to describe with posterior sclerotomies, we can actually go ahead and do this procedure in phthisis patients as well. Trauma, we already talked about the overhyped fear of sympathetic ophthalmitis, and it's actually possible to do so. So these are pictures of a child who presented in this manner with vitreous hemorrhage, but there are cells in the antechamber, and ultrasound shows intraocular mass with calcification. You would definitely not do an evisceration for such a situation, right? And sometimes mistakes happen. So this is a child who had an evisceration following what was thought to be an endophthalmitis, and this is what happened a month later. Which is why we keep stressing that please do an ultrasound in all your patients. Even if the patient has a trauma or a perforated ulcer, do a gentle B scan, rule out an intraocular mass. Okay, let's come to the techniques. So there are several ways of putting in a larger implant. And very nice papers have been published where they show that posterior sclerotomies is the way to do it. So you can have posterior sclerotomies along the circumference. You can have the 4-petal technique where you divide the sclera with the muscle attachments and then reattach it in front of an orbital implant, or Professor Agne's technique, which he describes as the parachute technique. Now, what we do is slightly different. What we do is we make four posterior sclerotomies, the back of the eye, from the equator to around the optic nerve, and then we join these 4 flaps together so that it opens up in the back, and you can put an orbital implant into the muscle cone. Okay, so go to the video. We have a short video clip. So let's see if it works. Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Going back to the video. Sorry.
No, just go ahead, Anirban. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're doing the peritomy now. Just it's a short video. We'll try to finish it as soon as possible. So this was a patient with a disfigured blind eye with some amount of shrinkage. Make a stab incision at the limbus, and you do a complete excision of the cornea. If you have scleral involvement with a fungal ulcer, for example, you would do a wider excision. And then create that plane between the uveal tissue and the sclera. So I use a cyclodialysis spatula. You could use any other instrument for your convenience. And then scoop out the entire contents of the globe. Leaving a clear scleral cup. Now, one of the things that we do is scrub the inner surface of the scleral cup with absolute alcohol. It loosens up the uveal remnants as well as changes the antigenicity of the uveal tissue and strip off any uveal tissue that you might have left very meticulously. Follow that up with irrigation of the scleral cup. 2 anterior sclerotomies. You can either do them on the 2 lateral sides or at inferior and superior, basically to create the entrance for your implant. And then these are the posterior sclerotomies we were talking about. They are radial sclerotomies, 4 in number, and they go between the rectus muscles. And they're directed from the equator towards the optic nerve. So nowadays I use a number 12 Bart Parker blade, which is like a sickle. And then you put in a, so this is a 20 millimeter implant here. And then push it into the orbit. And you'll see that you're able to get a very nice, it's going into the muscle cone after you've opened up the flaps between the, around the optic nerve. And with this technique, what you can do is put in a large implant without having a lot of pressure on the closure of the sclera. That reduces the risk of implant exposure. And then you close it layer by layer, the sclera first, followed by the tenons, and then finally the conjunctiva one. Savri, I'm sorry for the glitches that we had earlier. Let's stop here.
Do you want to complete your presentation? It's
You want
absolutely
me to?
okay.
Okay. Okay. So post-operatively, the main concern here is pain. So compared to enucleation, evisceration, post-operative is more painful. So we keep the patient in house for a night and use anti-inflammatory drugs as well as tramadol if required. Patient receive systemic steroids if they did not have a fungal infection, and then we give them topical antibiotic steroid drops. And 6 weeks later, when the socket is healed, we send them to the ocularist. That is ultimately your goal: is relieve the patient of discomfort and disfigurement, and then restore prosthesis. So it's a simple procedure, not a major modification, and we'll again stress upon the fact that we need to exclude anything lurking inside the eye. So do a B scan. Always use a conformer post-operative so that you can have a nice socket, and then get a custom ocular prosthesis implanted. Thank you.